Breaking news as of this Monday afternoon, nobody wants Des Claude. That's that's as clean as I can lay this out. We had this on the list to do an update on Des because over the weekend, the reports from everyone in the know on his recruitment were that presumably Florida was the only serious option for Des Claude. Everybody else had sort of backed off due to price point or even just the presumption that Florida was his likely destination. Well, as of roughly 20 minutes ago, Joe Tipton on three has reported that Florida is no longer pursuing Des Claude. Sources tell on three. In the hours since then, Tipton has added to the report that North Carolina, the team that you root for, is not in the mix for Des Claude. So, man, Riley, it really begs the question at this point: does anybody want Des Claude?
Mm, No, no, silly face. I like Des Claude the player. I really don't know how I even felt about the Florida fit though. And tangentially related to that, like I would have trusted Todd Golden to figure it out. It's tough not to when you look at like their history with player development the past 2 to 3 years and the way that they took Elijah Martin and immediately made him this sick instant impact guy for a title winning team, and they had Will Richard over the course of 3 years become this awesome defender and like knockdown shooter. Like there's a path where you could see Golden get the most out of Claude and kind of work with him as a secondary playmaker, even like that primary initiator that we saw him do for stretches at USC. I don't know exactly how it would have fit next to Xavier Lee, but I think Golden would have figured it out. But now you look at where it seems like maybe his agent overplayed his hand and they're backing off now. I like to me this feels a little bit Ugana Onyenso-y, where your agent sort of overplays his hand and you're left with not too many good options and you end up in a system that's not gonna get the most out of you. Like speaking of Ugana Onyenso, would it be surprising if like Des Claude is just running point at Kansas State next year for like a 17-win Kansas State team? Like that's the direction this feels like it's going to me. It's a shame because I like Des Claude the player and I think he can be a contributor for a winning team, but just that the price point seemingly burned some bridges, and now this late in the cycle, yeah, there are going to be desperate teams out there that are willing to give you a paycheck. I just don't know if it's going to be like title contending teams or teams that are really that serious about being top 25, top 15, top 10 level that are going to be lining up to sign Des Claude.
I think it's a good read by you. I like the Onyenso shout situationally. Des Claude, I mean, I think the only way to interpret what has happened here is that Des Claude looked in the mirror, his agents were in the room, and they all stared at the reflection and said, superstar. Everyone wants you. And then they played the field, and the field was just like, no, like, good player, could have you, could do without you, we'll be fine. Um, I don't think that necessarily says a ton about what Claude is as a player. I don't think that was a huge misread. I think he is a star, but any like let's just be real. Des Claude has played on back-to-back teams that finished their season with losing seasons. I mean, Xavier went 16 and 18 their last year with Des Claude. They immediately lost him and flipped the script and had a winning year.
Hmm.
At USC, they just went 17 and 18. And we're going to have to see what happens with Muss because, man, Muss dropped the bag for Rodney Rice and Chad Baker Mazara. Des Claude presumably could have had those bags to stay at USC. And one way or another, Des decided this ain't for me. Let me go get a bigger bag. You're not getting a bigger bag. You're probably getting less money than you would have had at USC at this point. So I'm fascinated by it. I think that's the right read on what happened. The curious part to me is what happens now because I think we all presumed Florida was the landing spot, even with the understanding that that's the situation. I think we all thought he'd end up at Florida, not get overpaid, but
Hmm.
Florida would be the destination that would pay him something he wants. And Florida has a need at his position. If that's not the outcome, and if North Carolina is not the outcome, I mean, where do we even turn at this point? Per Tipton in his latest update, the schools that were still under consideration were North Carolina, Kansas, Virginia, and then, quote, very ominously, potentially others. So this could be the onion, so he could just pop up anywhere at this point. If North Carolina's out, that leaves Kansas and Virginia as schools that have been named. Do either of those feel particularly likely to you, or do you think we're going to go back to the drawing board here? This video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. We have a special offer for you. Promo code SLEEPERS. If you're a first-time depositor, they will give you a bonus up to $1,000 that matches 50% of your first deposit, plus a free pick. And tonight's free pick is focused on none other than Steph Curry. Card, I got a question for you. How many points does Steph Curry average?
Ooh, I'm gonna go ahead and say 29.
I don't have it in front of me, but that sounds about right. Certainly more than zero, I assume.
Of course.
Well, tonight's free pick, Steph Curry to score 1 point, higher than zero point 0.5 points. It's as much of a guarantee as you can possibly get. Underdog Fantasy, deposit as a first time user, put in promo code SLEEPERS. Make sure you get that deposit match bonus up to $1,000 and the Steph Curry free pick. Back to the video.
Man, I think Kansas would be the optimistic side of things of like, okay, I'm going to a serious team. You know, I think with Claude's like his size and his athleticism and even his ability to get his own offense, like he's malleable enough to play any of the three positions on the perimeter. Like you could slide. I mean, come on, you're really telling me Melvin Council's going to beat him out for the starting point guard role if he wants that at Kansas? Like there is a path to being under a good coach who has a good track record with wings. Although, I mean, maybe a little bit of trepidation with Bill Self after what happened with Rylan Griffin and AJ Storr this year. You know, maybe Self isn't quite the wing whisperer he once was. But I think that could be a good situation. Virginia would be really intriguing to me just because I think they're sneakily stockpiling some talent. Like they got a bunch of good international kids coming in. They just landed a kid named Thie de Rida today from Belgium who's supposed to be nasty at the four. They got the big German kid, Johan Grunlow, at the five. But there's still minutes to be had on the perimeter there, alongside Jakari White, Dallin Hall. Like that could be, I don't know. If that worked out, I'd probably be pretty in on Virginia. But yeah, it just seems like the blue bloods of the world aren't really lining up, maybe aside from Kansas. Like, I don't know. I just don't think there's the market that we expected. And maybe like when he first hit the portal, there was supposed to be a return to USC on the table. That to me would make a lot of sense too, but I don't know if they have the money left to get him back for what he's hoping he can get.
It feels like that bridge was burned. At bare minimum, that would require, I think, putting aside some big ego, which is part of
Yeah.
how I think you got in this situation in the first place. So
But
I don't
don't
know.
you I just want it to happen because like the good must teams have a bunch of big wings who aren't really point guards, but someone plays point guard. Like
Yeah,
about
true.
like Jalen Tate, JD Note, there's someone else I'm forgetting.
At
The
minimum,
Martin
Rice,
brothers,
Baker,
like
Mazzara, Claude would have my full attention.
absolutely, that would be sick. We might have to we sleepers go west and we go to we might have to go see that in person, see that in LA. But
I
yeah.
can promise you I will not be following Des Claude anywhere this year. I can hand up on my Bible on my mama. That will not be a thing that happens.
What if he ends up at Virginia? Can we do a trip to Charlottesville?
No, if he ends up in Provo, that's the only place I would follow Des Claude to, and that's because I'm going to Provo anyway.
Well, okay, let me sell you on an East Coast trip if you come to Charlottesville.
I'll listen. At
All right.
bare minimum, I'll listen. Kansas is the only one that's been named right now that even gets me partially intrigued. Mostly because I think Kansas still needs somebody like this. They
Mhm.
need an impact player, in my opinion, to really elevate themselves. Again, I think there's a lot of baggage with Claude at this point, which is leading to this conversation. I also feel like something must have gone wrong with Florida because, again, Florida knew all of these concerns before they were the presumed leader. So there must have been something that changed between it's Florida and no, it's not. To me, it's probably friction between Dez and Xavier Lee. Maybe one of those two parties looked at the other one and was like, I don't like this. This isn't what I signed up for. We'll see. Todd Golden, I think they still are missing a piece too. So Des Claude, man, the early return for the Ugana Onyenso. What the hell was this transfer recruitment of the year? We'll continue covering this as this develops.